In the digital age, there is one strange thing that is rarely talked about: silence. We live in a time where almost everything becomes public. People share celebrations and routines, coffee and trips, joy and pain, carefully edited and beautifully packaged. And yet, there are those who remain unseen. They read, watch, notice, but almost never post anything about themselves. Maybe you've met people like that, or maybe you are one of them. And then a question quietly appears, one many people ask themselves: why? Why would someone willingly choose invisibility in a world where attention has become a form of currency? Most often the answer is simplified: modesty, introversion, withdrawal. But in reality, it goes much deeper. Behind online silence often lies an entire inner world and a particular way of relating to reality. For some, silence is not absence. It is a choice, a form of control, the right to decide what remains private and protected from other people's eyes. Social media has subtly changed how we perceive ourselves. It rewards display, speeds up reactions, and celebrates loudness. Yet those who stay on the sidelines often see what's happening more clearly than others. They observe without rushing to intervene. They reflect before reacting. They analyze without hurrying to judge. Psychological research suggests that people who rarely share personal content often have stronger self-regulation, a tendency towards self-reflection, and a higher degree of inner autonomy. They are less consumed by comparison and the need for external approval. They don't need to prove who they are. They need to know it. And in a world where almost everyone seems to be performing a role, this becomes a rare quality. If you think about it, much of social media content isn't simply communication. It's image construction. An attempt to say to the world, here is my life, here is me, accept me. But when a person stops posting, something shifts internally. Worth no longer depends on screen reactions. Thoughts stop forming in caption format. Moments are lived instead of documented. Not for others, for oneself. Many who go silent online are searching for authenticity in a space that increasingly feels staged. They don't reject technology. They simply no longer recognize themselves in this form of self-expression. This is not a protest against progress. It's a refusal to turn life into a display of highlight reels. When you realize how easily reality can be distorted, you begin to value what cannot be uploaded. Silence, depth, imperfection, honesty. For some, stepping into the shadows comes after emotional exhaustion. They once shared everything until sincerity turned into obligation. Every beautiful moment demanded continuation. Every post required explanation. Life began to feel like a performance, and so they disappeared. Without announcements, without explanations, they simply stopped being part of the feed. It's important to understand, online silence does not mean emptiness, and it does not mean indifference. Often, it reflects care for feelings, for meaning, for what a person wants to keep intact. In psychology, there is a concept of ownership of experience. When a moment, thought, or event feels deeply personal, posting makes it shared, open to judgment, distortion, and other people's interpretations. That's why some people choose to keep their experiences untouched, not to share them, not to place them in someone else's hands. And perhaps this isn't withdrawal or closeness, but a form of inner freedom. Think about it. When was the last time you experienced something meaningful without feeling the urge to show it? When did you last feel joy or pain without thinking about how it would look from the outside? The desire to share everything is not innate. It's conditioned by likes, reactions, and the expectation of response. The brain learns to confuse attention with value, so when someone steps out of this system, it can seem strange. But often, it's restoration. People relearn how to do things without witnesses, to eat without photographing, to travel without tagging, to feel without explaining. In that space, awareness emerges. Awareness that does not need an audience. But not all silence comes from peace. Sometimes it comes from fear of being misunderstood, judged, or ignored. Social media has amplified performance anxiety, the sense of always being on stage, even when you're quiet. For many, this becomes exhausting. They step back, not because they reject connection, but because the cost of visibility is too high. They want to be truly seen, not superficially, and often, those who are silent online carry the richest inner dialogues. They are not empty, they are full. They choose silence over display. There is a philosophy in this choice. In a world where everyone says, "Look at me," refusing attention becomes a statement. I exist beyond your gaze. Not everything that happens inside is meant for public view. The most important changes, growth, pain, reevaluation, often happen quietly. And when there are many such changes, a person begins to understand. Being unnoticed does not mean being insignificant. It is in silence that personality is formed, not an image. Social media was created to connect, yet it often deepens loneliness. When you stop posting, you begin to see who stays without reminders, who is interested without updates. Those connections feel deeper and warmer. People who don't post often build relationships that don't need validation. They are comfortable in what is unseen. They allow life to flow without turning it into content. This, too, reflects inner stability, the ability to be oneself even when no one is watching. When you are at ease alone, you don't need an audience. This isn't pride, it's peace. Ironically, such people often have the strongest stories. They just tell them privately, not publicly. Their world is rich. Their attention is deep. Their presence is real. They don't need applause. Living is enough. In a world obsessed with visibility, their silence becomes a reminder. Not everything valuable needs to be shown. The longer a person lives outside constant digital noise, the sharper reality becomes. Colors grow richer. Conversations deepen. Time slows down. When the need to perform disappears, the ability to be returns. There is a special beauty in a life without proof. When you don't think about angles or reactions. When you are simply present, psychologically, this relates to the dopamine reward system. Posting and feedback create dependency. Those who step out of this cycle do so not out of indifference, but awareness. Such people often develop an internal source of self-worth. They don't need constant external confirmation. Studies show that reducing constant social media presence often increases emotional resilience and life satisfaction, because identity stops being a reflection. It becomes whole. But silence isn't always easy. Sometimes it's protection. Some leave because they're tired of comparing, doubting, proving. They realize they don't have to be visible to be meaningful. This is one of the great confusions of our time. We've equated visibility with value. Yet the most important moments in life don't require witnesses. Privacy is not loneliness. It's intimacy with oneself. When constant broadcasting ends, the inner voice returns. Desires, intuition, direction. This isn't disappearance, it's return. And with time comes the understanding. Value does not disappear in the absence of attention. Perhaps true confidence is not a loud declaration of oneself, but a quiet knowing of who you are. And perhaps those who don't post simply remember this better than most.